Okay, guys, what I got is just a nice, simple old chart. You could hold that corner of the east coast of Canada, basically. And, of course, this is the area that we want to be able to concentrate on. Newfoundland here to the east, Halifax to the southwest, and, of course, Sable Island, which is part of the province of Nova Scotia. What we know, and that's all I want to deal with, is absolutely the facts, that the Andrea Gail steamed from her spot on the Flemish Cap, which is actually beyond the Grand Banks, towards Gloucester, which is essentially Boston, if you look at the chart. That line would have taken her just to the offshore side of Sable, and that was his chosen route. That being the case, this would have been his route home. What we know is that on the 28th of October, his last known and given position was here. Approximately 170 miles, almost due east to Sable, right here on this 44th parallel. The other things we know for sure is that following the storm, debris that was positively identified as having come from Andrea Gail showed up here on the beaches of Sable and drifted out through
the barrels that come off the deck and the EPIRB, her emergency position emitting beacon.
Right. In fact, the EPIRB was found here on the beach, along with the propane tank. Now, again, it could be argued that those items could have come off the vessel before it sank. So there's a lot we don't know. What we have to deal with, like we do in any shipwreck search, is just make sure we sort out the fact from the fiction. And there's always a lot of fiction when you start talking about shipwrecks and trying to plot positions.
Do we have any idea of what was going on with currents and waves? This is a big, major storm event, isn't it?
Wind currents, which way were they driving?
Right. And, for us to try and plot that would be just about impossible. But there are experts at the Bedford Institute of Oceanography. And they have models, and they have experts who can take that storm event and, using their models, predict, going backwards in time, a sort of a drift path of debris. In other words, if the material ends up here, they predict the drift and the wind. They'll actually create a path for us to follow backwards through time.
Well, that'll be good. I guess the other area, Clive, this is a pretty heavily surveyed military zone, given its proximity to the main submarine lanes. How are you planning to go and look? Are you going to be contacting the forces and trying to use an aerial magnetometer?
Mm-hmm. Well, not unlike the American coast, the Canadian coast is protected by what we have is Aurora aircraft that fly here out of Nova Scotia. And it's their job to watch for all sorts of activity on the surface and under the surface of the water. And interestingly enough, they have magnetic anomaly charts. Imagine if you were an enemy submarine, you would want to know where the existing shipwrecks are. So in fact, if you were worried about detection, you would hide behind a known shipwreck.
Yes.
Your magnetic signature would be like.
They've done their mag surveys, and these are their hits.
That's right. These are not necessarily confirmed shipwrecks, but what they are is magnetic anomalies that could represent shipwrecks, and you could easily hide a submarine in there.
So, conceivably, we can go back through their data. Because Andrea Gail sinks in late October 1991. Mm-hmm. So we go back 10 years, get the mag data, and then look and see what shows up right after there. Mm-hmm. Or plotting to see what can be found. Mm-hmm. 10 to 1, they've imaged it. Now, this is a steel ship.
Right, 72 feet, 30 some odd meters.
Clive, you've done a lot of searching. That's a pretty small needle in the haystack.
It's small.
It's tiny.
When did the storm reach its peak?
Well, generally, and this is the nice thing about this particular area. There was a meteorological or surface buoy that could measure wind, velocity, wave heights, and even I think some data about currents. And we don't have to guess. We don't have to take weather maps. We can take the hard data that came from that buoy just to the west of the last known position of Andrea Gail. So we can know exactly when the storm peaked, what the Andrea Gail would have been up against at the time of the storm.
Now, when they decided to come back during the storm, was that it? Return?
Well, they didn't. My understanding is they didn't realize the potential of the storm when they left the Flemish Cap.
So where did they start really hitting it?
Well, believe it or not, the effects of the storm were brewing over several days. But it wasn't until the 28th that the buoy actually started to suddenly, and it was a very sudden event, started to register the storm. And that hit somewhere in the afternoon of the 28th of October.
I see, and their last position was given
Just
on the 28th.
That's right. They were just to the east of that buoy. And
what did they say on their last report? Anything?
You're talking now about the crew of the Andrea Gail?
Yeah.
They reported that it was coming on hard. I think those were almost his exact words, that she's coming and she's coming on hard.
This is Billy Tyne, the skipper.
That's right, yes.
Now, I would imagine that the other skippers back in Gloucester have their own views as to what happened.
Right.
Maybe while you're doing this part of it, maybe I can go with John down to Gloucester, talk to these folks, get a sense. Most of these folks have fished off the banks for their entire life. They know these conditions. Many of these people knew Billy Tyne. I doubt the story's fully been told.
Right. And
quite frankly, about fish. I mean, this area is littered with fishing boat wrecks as well. These folks are going to have a view.
Well, and you know too, Clive, how valuable the information from fishermen can often be.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And certainly, they fish this area. They know something about how one of their own would respond in a storm like this and sea conditions. And but we're not just drawing on the information that we might gather from the Aurora aircraft. We hope to access information from some of the big some of the hydrocarbon people that work out here.
Yeah.
And Sable is becoming a very well-known area internationally for natural oil and gas. So you have Pan-Canadian, ExxonMobil. They're all working and exploring in this area.
This area is a graveyard of ships, though.
Sure.
Yeah, Banquereau, and certainly Sable itself.